Castle Crashers is coming to Steam. 4 years after it was released on Xbox Live Arcade, 2 years after it was released on the PlayStation Network.
They're in no hurry.
I know. The behemoth developer of Castle Crashers, they work slowly.
Damon, how do they do this?
This
How
is
do
what
they
I
stay
wonder.
in business?
This is what I
No
wonder.
offense to the behemoth, you make good games.
Because they're working on Battle Block Theater, right?
Yeah.
This is the follow-up to Castle Crashers, which isn't out 4 years after Castle Crashers. Has no release date. It was announced in January 2009.
We've played it at every PAX.
And every Comic-Con, like it's just always there in their big arcade setup.
Yeah.
Castle Crashers sold very well. It sold like 1 million copies just on Xbox Live Arcade alone, right?
Yeah.
More on PlayStation Network. And they're a small team, so I guess they made enough money to just take their time.
They do a lot with merch too. I don't know how
That's
much,
true.
They do a lot of
but
merch.
that definitely helps augment their income a lot.
decided, you know
but
what
the fact
people
that
would-
this is coming to Steam way later is, I don't know. Like at this point,
I was going to ask you to review the excitement around this announcement that it's coming to Steam, because there's not even a release date on Steam. They just announced today that it's coming to Steam.
I don't
2
even
years more.
I honestly don't care because I've already played it on Xbox. Like
Yeah.
I've gone through it and I've done it with my friends and now I'm just kind of over it. I guess if you never played it, cool. Like good for you, but
Oh, good for you!
where you been?
I mean, people love that game. But how many people on PC didn't play it already?
Yeah, I mean, probably few and far between. But
lot
I'm
of
sure it'll
4-year-olds.
it'll
A lot of
probably still
4-year-olds.
sell pretty well.
It'll
Yeah,
be a
sure.
game. I'll buy it when it's on a Steam sale for $2.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Or never
Already own
because we'll die before it comes out.
I know. The Steam version will have voice chat, Steam achievements, gamepad support, Steam Cloud support, plus local and online multiplayer. So all that good stuff. What about Battle Block Theater? Is anybody interested? I feel like, for me personally, it's taken too long, and now I've
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. We played it how many years ago? I don't even remember what it is, but I remember I played it and I enjoyed it and I wrote about it at PAX, but now I have no idea what that game is anymore.
Honestly, that game I think is going to be at PAX again this year. Like it's not even to me worth writing about.
Oh, no.
Because it was like that was like the type of game that should have had a 1 year cycle. Maybe it was shown and then it came out like 6 months later.
It's a minigame collection.
It
It's
is,
a multiplayer minigame.
and why is it taking so long? Like,
But it could be. I
literally.
mean, who knows? Like it could be. Maybe it'll come out and be great, like Fez. Like,
Sure.
You know, you don't
Sure,
know.
it's just I don't care anymore.
But I feel like there is like a certain amount of time when a game has been in development that it's too long, and I just no longer am interested in following it anymore. I'm trying to figure out exactly how long that is, because Dust: An Elysian Tale just came out on Xbox Live Arcade, and I was following that game years and years ago. Granted, that was like one guy that made that game, but still, I feel like there is a certain amount of time where I lose interest in following a game.
Now, are we being elitists because we know everything and we're exposed to this?
I'm not
and we,
trying to. I'm just.
No, I know. Oh, I know. I'm not saying you're elitist, but it's just a little elitist. He's a little guy. But it's one of those things like to the general consumer who probably doesn't even know about Battle Block Theater, doesn't see the PAX every time they go to PAX. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think there's a difference there that it's going to come out and it's going to say from the makers of Castle Crashers, and they're going to be like, oh man.
Instead of being elitist, I think it depends on how closely you follow the industry. Right?
Sure.
I mean,
How
I think the
follow this.
difference is, I think at this point, I think Damon's completely fair to not follow development anymore. Like, you don't know, it's another year, it's at another PAX, you don't need to keep an eye on what that game's up to. But then you tune back in when it comes out. You say,
Yeah,
okay, well,
that's
how
true.
did
That is
it
true.
turn out, you know?
Yeah.
And if it turned out awesome, then you buy it and love it, and if it didn't, then, you know, okay, fair enough. I keep touching your knee.
Yeah, I know the hand. You're into the hand motions.
What's on your wrist, Greg?
I got my Madden wristband
Okay.
for like, you know, if I'm calling plays out in the real world, it's
In the real world, yes.
That's how, you know, a quarterback would wear this in real world and then flip it up and he'd get the play and he'd check his play and then he'd go and he'd hike the ball. And then so in Madden this year, it came with my Madden review copy. It's got all my Kinect commands on it here.
It looks like it's going to be
a
a pre-order bonus too, because I see
It
a little
says
bit of a
GameStop on the front of it. Yeah. So I can look at this. If I forgot how to hike the ball, I say General hike. Oh, okay.
You can wipe
hike.
the shame off your fat face along with the sweat.
Oh, I have no shame. I like it. I've been wearing it around the office all week for no reason. And it also, I was trying to explain to Altano what it was, and he had no idea what I was saying because I was talking about football. But it also looks like the Buzz Lightyear one.
Yeah,
That's
where
true.
you flip it over Buzz Lightyear colors.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's the colors of Buzz Lightyear too.
I never put together that Kinect
Command.
colors are Buzz Lightyear
Yeah.
colors.
You can call Star Command.
Yeah, that's the one.
You have a bunch of Madden stuff coming up next week, don't you?
Yeah, big Madden week next week. We got a live stream. We got a review. They're going to be filming up at noon. They won't be on up at. Oh, I think maybe we're putting up at noon up on Friday. I forget.
Anyway.
A lot of Madden stuff next week.
of
If you
Madden.
like Madden, park it at IGN.com. Tailgating fans.
The exploration, puzzle solving, and combat combine to create an enthralling adventure. For more on Horn, check out IGN.com.
Justin, there's this new iOS game. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Horn.
I have.
It's supposed to be amazing, is what I hear.
I saw somebody tweeted today that if you're a hardcore gamer, this is the iOS game you've been waiting for. I think it was
Some guy, some Yahoo tweeted that out.
Probably Will Powers.
Anyway, you reviewed Horn.
Horn is
for
super
iOS.
good. So, Damon and I, something that you and I discussed is that we're not super wild about virtual buttons or virtual joysticks in games.
They're
And
kind of
so-
a deal breaker for me.
Right. They're
Like girls who smoke.
well, yeah.
But
Don't
if she
do that.
smokes, she pokes.
Is that
Oh,
what? What does that mean?
It's a Family Guy reference, and what do you think it means?
She pokes me?
No.
I don't want to be poked. Anyway.
You're just face palming over there. So virtual D-pads, I feel like it's not as much of a deal breaker for me as it is for you. I've played some games like League of Evil that I think control really well with like virtual buttons, but I think it's lazy. I think they take a game like GameLoft's Batman game, for example. Batman. And they just they say, here's the console controls, let's just slap them onto a touch screen, and that's it. And what excited me about Horn was it's not that. It's built from the ground up for touch control in mind. So it's a third-person action adventure. It's kind of Zelda-ish. When you go into combat, it's a little bit more like Infinity Blade. You can dodge left and right and sort of slash the screen to attack enemies. But you can actually move around. It's sort of this open, it's not an open world, it's level-based, but you can sort of tap to run somewhere, tap a ledge to jump to that ledge. And it's all like context sensitive. So if you're like shimmying along like a tight ledge, you can swipe left and right to like sort of move and not fall off the ledge. And it's really cool. It's sort of the first, there have been other 3D games that were built sort of from the ground up with touch controls in mind, but this one
Infinity
works.
Blade? Are you
Yeah,
including
but
that,
Infinity
or-
Blade, there's no movement, right? Like you just sort of tap
You're on
points.
rails.
Yeah, you're on rails,
Okay.
and this one's an actual sort of like you can go explore caves and like, there's a dock, what's at the end of it? And you can sort of walk out on it, and they do it without, virtual buttons and without like a virtual D-pad.
It sounds very cool. So what's the flow of gameplay? If it's like Zelda, then you explore, you find a dungeon, you solve puzzles in the dungeon, then you fight a boss.
Sure. So it's not really like that. There's a hub world, and then it branches off into sort of branching missions, and they're fairly short. They're, I would say, 20 minutes long as each individual level. And it's not like this is some big open world that you can explore. It's still sort of linear, like within the level. You're going from point A to B to C. Like you solve this puzzle, then you fight this dude, then you solve this puzzle. But there's some, like you can go off the beaten path a little bit to like find some treasure or, discover some secrets or that sort of thing. And game looks absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how the wizards at Phosphor Games are doing, the wizards at Phosphor are doing, like their last game looked gorgeous too, but it didn't play as good as this. So this is sort of the complete package of, controls well, plays well. The voice acting is actually really, really good. The story's interesting. Gameplay's good. The puzzles are very, like if you're a hardcore gamer, if you've played a lot of Zelda games, they're going to be easy for you. Like none of them really stumped me. The combat's stronger. Like it's really varied and has a lot of variety to it. And the game's, I was really, really impressed. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It lost some points for being a little bit repetitive, but otherwise there's really not much I don't like about it.
Now, I take umbrage with some of the language you use when
Yeah?
you talk about the game.
Okay.
'Cause you're really stressing that this is like a game that hardcore gamers should pay
Yeah.
attention to. And can't we be done like classifying gamers as like hardcore or anything else? Or
Well, I mean, you see the comments that I get. Whenever I write anything that mentions iPhone, the comments are like, oh, these baby games. Will you stop reviewing these baby games, IGN? Like, that's the sort of thing I get. And so, I know. And I'm getting all defensive now and angry about it.
Just let it out.
And
but that's just ignorance, though, right?
right. I mean, iPhone is a platform like anything else. Like there is stuff for young kids. There's stuff for casual gamers. There's stuff for hardcore gamers. And I'm not really wild about the term hardcore gamer either. But it's a shorthand. Like when you say that, people kind of understand what you're talking about, what type of game you're.
I think
So-
we've talked about this before
Yeah.
on GameScoop especially, but I think, especially for Justin right now, I think, it's kind of like a bat signal, if you will, or like a flare to say, hey, people who usually ignore whatever I put up, or if you never pay attention to iPhone games and you only play your 360 or PC, come look at this. This is something you might be into.
You don't think that just perpetuates the stereotype that iPhone games aren't real games or something?
I mean, what do you have to do? You have to get those people through the door to change their minds.
I mean, it's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, honestly. I
Me and
think
Damon do.
I think iPhone is very
I
different.
call Greg at night. Greg,
It's like
Can't we be
3:30
done
in
with
the morning. What's
hardcore?
going on, Damon?
I've been thinking more about what defines a hardcore game.
if you go to Metacritic,
Yeah.
if you look at like the top 20 best reviewed recent games, they're virtually all iOS games.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's just because there's so many more of those
think
coming
it's-
out.
They are, I think. A
But,
lot of
I mean-
a lot of my peers that there's a handful of sites springing up that cover only iPhone games, and I think a lot of them are way too generous with how they score things. If it's like decent and kind of fun, they're like, 5 out of 5. So.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But that aside, I mean, I don't. not every gamer is like you and me, and sort of like I'll play a very casual puzzle game, then I'll go play a shooter, then I'll go play a Japanese action game. Like I have very eclectic, wide-ranging tastes, and some gamers don't. They kind of just want the really high fidelity, high impact, in-depth titles. And I'm playing a game called Puzzlecraft that's great. It's just as good as Horn, but it's the difference between night and day. It's very, very casual and simple and easy. And so, labeling something as hardcore is a way to sort of get some people to pay attention that maybe wouldn't otherwise. It doesn't mean that it's better or anything like that. It's just, some people don't want that casual stuff.
What do you think, Anthony?
I think Horn looks like a cool game. Primarily, the idea that there are like hardcore games and stuff. I get that. Like there are certain people that those are the experience they still want on iOS. To me, those are like the type of experiences that I take when they're really good, but that's not what I want when I'm playing on an iOS mostly. Like I still love things that I can play in really short bursts. And it sounds like you can do that to a degree with Horn as well. But things like Gasketball.
You like Gasketball?
Gasketball's great.
Gasketball's fantastic.
I've been checking out Gasketball.
I gave him $3. The creator of that $3, or the creators of $3, because even though they've like had over like 200,000 downloads, they're like broke. Like they don't have any money.
Well, I mean, it's free. The game is free.
Right, but you can unlock the full version for $3 from within the app.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, and their conversion rate, like normally the expectation is like 1% to 2% of people that download your app will pay for it in that model, and they're seeing a lot lower percentage.
Yeah, probably because they give too much for free.
Yeah,
maybe.
They're too generous and it's hurting them.
So, but yeah, I mean things like that, and but to me the iOS device, it's funny. I was talking to someone about this that, despite having like a computer in your pocket that's like more connected than ever. In theory, like soon we could play like a Call of Duty style shooter or something that's online.
Yeah.
I have no interest in that though. Like for me, most of the time when I play, even though it's always online, I don't want to play a multiplayer where we have to be online at the same time. Asynchronous is still where it's at. Like it is like where that type of multiplayer persists. I'm finally getting to Hero Academy. I'm way late on that. But it's awesome, and it's awesome because of that, because of asynchronous multiplayer. Gasketball as well has asynchronous multiplayer that like makes a world of difference.
Yep, I have a folder on my phone of all my asynchronous multiplayer games. So it's all the obvious like Words with Friends stuff, also Ticket to Ride, also Gasketball now. Like there's becoming a lot more variety in the category. People are understanding that that's how people want to play these mobile games. Game developers are figuring that out, that it lets people fit it into their
schedule.
life.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is that most of the time when you pull out your iPhone to play games, you're not pulling it out because you're sitting down being like, time to play some games. You're like, oh, I have time to kill.
Unless I'm on a plane or something.
Sure. So that's the time when I'll probably save Horn, honestly, for when I have like a good lengthy trip and be like, all right, now I'm gonna dive into this. So.
It's good, and I will say, like for people in this room, and for maybe a lot of people that are watching or listening, Horn is. I mean, the puzzles are easy if you've been playing games for a long time. Like you'll see, it's all the same stuff you've seen in Zelda games before. And I mentioned that in my review. The puzzles are a little disappointing, but the whole package comes together like in a really, really nice way. And the combat kind of makes up for the weak puzzles a little bit. And what excites me the most about this is the game itself is awesome, but it shows potential for where mobile can go. This game's not open world, but you can obviously see how they could do an open world game with these same controls, this same sort of style and presentation. And it's just it's a big step in the right direction, and I think people need to reward that.
Greg, you gonna check out Horn?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds cool. I don't iPhone game. I don't iOS game all that much, and so I've run into this before. We talk about a game and how great it is, and I'm like, all right, cool, and I buy it, and then I never play it. And I like sit there and I look at Jetpack Joyride.
I mean, there's plenty of things on your own platform you're not going to play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so,
or any platform.
Yeah. I'm just saying, do you plan on playing Papo.io?
Yeah, I'll try it.
See? Yeah.
You didn't like it? Or no, Mitch didn't like it.
Justin, you mentioned League of Evil.
Uh-huh.
One of our viewers, Noah, writes in asking if you've heard of a game called Random Heroes.
Yeah, game came out today.
Apparently by the guys that made League of Evil.
It's a little bit like League of Evil, but you have guns. It's more like Mega Man style rather than League of Evil's like a pure platformer.
Okay.
That is one of the best examples of virtual buttons that are done pretty well, though.
Right.
League of Evil? Or?
Yeah.
So that's why, unlike Damon, if a game has virtual buttons, you're kind of not into it. You're kind of done. And I'm not that way because sort of the devil's in the details with these things. Where most games with virtual buttons don't feel that great. You miss buttons. You're missing jumps. But that game does it well. I think it's probably the best 2D game. That and Most Efron or most what's it called?
Most Efron sounds cool.
And those guys do a good job of like integrating it. Like I don't know if the new one's integrated with it, but the League of Evil at least works with like the iCade thing and stuff.
Great iCade support.
So.